Hello, hello, hello. Okay, so I told y'all that we were going to do stuff over serial killers for the next few weeks. Today, since we talked about the Green River Killer the other day, and Ted Bundy kind of helped with that case, we're going to go ahead and talk about Ted Bundy this time. Now, Ted Bundy was born in 1946 in Vermont. He is one of the most notorious serial rapists and killers, and God only knows how many victims he actually has out there. This man was severely intelligent, and not only that, he was good at making people believe he was something that he wasn't. He was generous in certain cases. He was charming, and he was a very good-looking man in a lot of people's eyes. So back in the day when he was actually doing this, it was between the years of 1974 and 1978. And he had a good long running streak of kidnaps, murders, rapes, essays, and a lot of other bad stuff. Now, Ted was very smart, like I said. He had a very difficult childhood, from what I understand. He went in, he said that him and his stepfather had a very troubled relationship. So basically, as we all know, he was another victim that possibly had a very bad childhood. Now, we all know that most serial killers, they all state or can confirm, or they all say in one way or another that they had a troubled childhood, or, some kind of upbringing that caused them to make these decisions. And I get things happen, but why? Why still take the life of other people? Okay, so let's get into this. So Ted, when he would lure, I guess, his victims into situations, he would play like he was injured, or he was having car trouble, or he would make people believe that he needed help in a certain way, and not just anybody. This was females in particular. Now, there was even a female that I had watched or read about that had said that she had even offered him to have guys help him, and then he refused and took off. Now, later on, he ended up murdering one of the girls that came out of the same area, and she feels tremendously guilty because of the fact that she says she could have stopped her if she would have thought about it beforehand. Now, Ted, he had at one point had a very long-term relationship with this one female, and she had a young daughter. And she said that Ted was one of the most sweetest, thoughtful, caring individuals you'll ever meet in your life. And he had some quirks, and now at the time she understands more of what those were and why he had certain ones. But other than that, he showed no signs of being dangerous or like forceful or anything. And when she met him, she said she instantly fell for this man. Now, Ted, like I said, he was very good at hiding what he was really about. He was worked at as a law student, or he was a law student first, but he was working with people where you had to do psychology testing to see how your mental state was. And supposedly he passed all of this with flying colors. So he knew how to, I guess, manipulate the system as well. Now, he murdered, he said himself, up to 28 different females or different individuals. Now, those could not all be confirmed, but Ted liked to have the spotlight on himself. If he could manipulate it to where it was more about him, then that's what he was going to do, regardless of the situation. Now, when he started all of this kind of stuff, there was particularly, he went after college girls. Young college girls that were basically easy to fool, easy to manipulate. When he got arrested the first time, he got arrested because of the fact that he went into a mall and he tried to lure this girl out from this mall, and he introduced himself as Ted. Now, she didn't feel very, she was very concerned. She didn't want to do it, but she ended up going against her gut instinct and doing it anyway to help him. And when they got out to his car, he forced her in the car. And they got to a stop sign or a stoplight, and she bolted. She got out of there. And she would have been another one of Ted's victims if the fact that she didn't trust her instinct and get out right then. Now, the police started finding out who this man was because of the fact that she got away. And so she went to the police and she told them, this is what he looks like. They did a composite sketch, told the color of the car, his ruse, all this kind of stuff. And then said his name, he calls himself Ted. Now, when the police actually, released a composite sketch and started giving certain information out to the public, other people were like, well, I only know one Ted, because I guess back then that name wasn't very popular. So they kind of thought it could be him, but then they were like, no, because he's too good of a guy. He made them all believe this. Now, when his girlfriend at the time that had the daughter saw this, she kind of started getting suspicious right then and there. But when she confided in one of her girlfriends at the time, and they called the police and she asked them questions, and at that time they were like, no, this is not him. There's no way this, because I guess he really made them believe that it wasn't him. Now, when she had more questions come up because certain things started popping up that she kind of had an inkling, because she had found a photo too that looked just like the composite sketch of this man that supposedly did this. And once more girls and women and young girls started coming up missing, and they started putting two and two together, they started realizing, okay, we have a big problem. We know that there's a serial rapist or murderer out there, but we just don't know who it is, what he looks like, nothing. He was getting away with it for so long. Now, Ted was a very charming man, like I said. So when he got arrested the first time, he said that he was going to basically defend himself, be his own lawyer, especially since he was in school and he was in law school. So I guess at the time you could do this. Now, he was allowed to use the law library at the courthouse. And sometimes, and on multiple occasions, he was left alone during these times. Now, Ted decided he was going to call his girlfriend at the time and tell her goodbye, he said. That was one of his ways to get away, a way to call her, even though she kind of started distancing herself from him. And she still felt very uncomfortable talking to him, even though she still loved him. Now, she did this because she said, I don't want to be around him, and I brought this chaos into my life and into my child's life, and I don't want that for her. So she tried her darndest to separate herself. Now, when Ted was in this law library, he was on the second floor. So I guess the guards and them decided, oh, he doesn't have to be watched because there's no exit. It was one door in and one door out, and there was a guard outside the door. Well, Ted decided he was going to open that window. Oh, excuse me. And jump from the second story window. So that's exactly what he did. So once the police and everybody realized that Ted had escaped, this time he took off. Well, he was caught within a few hours. Thank goodness, that time. Now, yes, he got away more than once. So once he was caught and captured, he said he just needed to get away for a while or whatever and tried to leave. Now, when he was put in a more maximum security prison, Ted decided that it wasn't enough to be there. And it wasn't enough for him to have his own like independency and all that kind of stuff. So Ted decides, okay, I'm going to escape again. Now, up in the ceiling of Ted's cell, there was this very small opening where the light fixture was. And I'm talking tiny. So Ted decides he's going to start starving himself in order to fit in between this light fixture area. And that's exactly, he does. And he goes on the run. He steals a car. He gets as far away as possible before anybody really realizes that he's gone again. Now, only this time, a lot of very bad things happen. This time, Ted decides that I'm out. I need to kill. I need to murder. I need to rape. I need to do all of this stuff again. So Ted decides, okay, I'm going to murder this 12-year-old girl. And he kidnaps her, and he rapes her, and he murders her. And he gets away with it for the time being. Now, he decides that that wasn't enough. He decides that it's still time to go to the sorority house. Now, back then, and he got all the way to Florida. So that is a very far way. And at the time, you couldn't just let people know that this guy was on the loose. And the police department and everybody where he was at when he escaped tried to get in contact with all the law enforcement agencies that they possibly could to let them know that he was released, or that he escaped. Sorry, not released. And when they didn't get to Florida's police departments in time, Ted decided he was going to break in to this sorority house, which he really didn't have to because unfortunately that night they said they left the door unlocked. He proceeded up the stairs. He raped and brutally beat and murdered a young female girl. Then he went across the hall. He raped and brutally beat another female student, both of them to death. There was a third victim, but she walked in on Ted and he beat her and she barely survived. Now, Ted just walks right down the stairs and out the door like nothing ever happened after these brutal, brutal attacks. He doesn't go very far. He ends up going down the road to this another house where there was another female that was alone. And he breaks into her house. He brutally beats her, murders her, takes her keys, and takes her car. Now, around this time, a police officer is patrolling. and he sees this car come out of an alleyway. And he instantly gets this gut instinct that it's not right. He shouldn't be there at this time. So he follows him, lights him up, and he pulls his gun. And when he pulls his gun, he knows that him and Ted are about to get into it. And so he fights him for his gun, and he knows that if he doesn't fight, he was going to end up dead that night. So he does fight him. He gets, Ted under arrest. At the time, Ted gives him a false name. And when they get him back to the police station, they start questioning him about a lot of things. Well, at this time, everybody's starting to surround the sorority house because it's early in the morning and everybody's starting to figure out what happened. And everybody in that sorority house is just terrified. Nobody knows what's really going on. Nothing at this point other than them and the police at the time. Now, eventually the news breaks that all of these girls were attacked. They were murdered, and they start releasing certain details. Now, when Ted gets back to the police department, he ends up telling them, you need to get a hold of such, and such, because I'm a very bad man, and you're going to want to talk to them, and I need to get back to Florida, or to wherever I left, in order to finish my trial, because I'm an escapee. And so the police department gets in touch with the other police department, and they get him back to where he needs to go. But at this time, he has already done these horrific murders. But honestly, too, before they actually found out who he was, a police officer finally called and said, hey. And then they were like, no, I don't think this guy did it because he was so charming. I don't think this is who we have in custody. And you couldn't just send a picture over like you can now. So it was all crazy. Now, during the trial, because of the fact that they couldn't prove that he killed 28 women or done anything to these 28 women, they could only prove without a doubt, the ones that happened in Florida. So, of course, he gets tried for sure for murder for these two women. And during that trial, he's already set up for another trial, like I said, of the 12-year-old girl that he murdered. They finally found out that he did that one too. Now, he did end up getting the death penalty, of course, and everybody knows this. Now, what's crazy, though, is, like I said, with him representing himself, he thought that he could manipulate the females that were on the jury to fall in love with him, basically, listen to all his bullshit, and make them believe that he was this god, pretty much. And in turn during this trial that he was already going through, he asked this woman out of the blue while she was on the stand to marry him. And I guess back then, and maybe even now to this day, because I haven't looked it up, that if you ask somebody to marry you while they're on the stand and you say I do and they say I do, then I guess you're legally married at that point because it's in front of a judge. So he did this out of the blue with his, and his ex-girlfriend found out. He kind of did it in spite of her because of her not wanting nothing to do with him. And it also was a way for them to bring the spotlight back to him again and kind of try to take the spotlight away from the murders. And so he was always about, I have to have the spotlight on me. It's got to be about me. And he was really good at getting those kind of things done for him. So now everybody knows what he's done, what he's been